today's video, and in today's video, I'll be doing a 2024 election prediction between Kamala Harris and Nikki Haley. Now, this is actually a very likely scenario. If we go over here, Harris is far and away the Democratic favorite. Second place is Obama. I think that's Michelle Obama, because unless they're discussing rules where they could change it and Barack Obama could run, I don't know. That's not going to happen. And then, in the GOP primary, we see Trump is obviously the favorite, and then after that, is that Pence, yeah, and then others, and then after that, it's kind of this crazy field with like Haley and Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio, Marco Rubio, a lot of people. But if we go look at a lot of these polls, and Haley, whenever Trump's not in them, she typically performs pretty well. Pence is clearly the favorite, if not Trump. But I think that she can maybe beat Pence. So these two are two of the favorites for each party. So let's go start by labeling all the Democrats safe state. It's Washington, Oregon, California. Colorado will be safe, and I'll discuss that in a minute. If we go look at 2014 exit polls, Haley is not actually a great minority candidate. She is alright among minority voters, but she's not phenomenal. We go look at 2016. We go look at, or 2014, excuse me. We go look up over here. Here, racial exit polls. The only two that we could really get, that I guess CBS was able to get information for, was black voters and white voters. So let's go look at black voters. Haley lost black voters by 86%. That's the Florida exit polls. I haven't closed the tab yet. We go look at 2020 South Carolina. Trump lost the black vote by 83%. So he did slightly overperform Haley as opposed to losing by 86%, I think. Yeah, he slightly overperformed Haley, which is not a good thing if you're Nikki Haley. Now, he was the incumbent. If we go look at 2016, he lost the black vote by 90%. So he did worse in 2016, but better in 2020. But considering the fact that she was still the incumbent and she underperformed an incumbent Trump is not a good thing, in that she narrowly, a few percentage points, either way it's similar, but she narrowly overperformed Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton when he was not the incumbent, is not a good thing at all for her campaign. Also, another thing, she is not actually a great candidate for the suburbs. We go look at the suburbs. This is 2014. She won the suburbs by 23%, which is obviously a very strong suburban performance if it was 2020. This is 2013. We go look at Trump, his performance 2 years later. Excuse me, that's 2020. 2 years later, and if we go look at area type, 2 years later in the suburbs, he won by 29%. So he overperformed Haley when he was not the incumbent. And we all know that Trump's a horrible candidate for the suburbs. And we go look at 2020. He did underperform her. He only won the suburbs, I believe, 18%. So he underperformed her by 5%. However, that was 6 years later. The suburbs have had 6 years to shift. 6 years. Haley only overperforms him by 5% after 6 years of shifting. So she is not, from the evidence that we've seen, she's not a good suburban candidate. She is, also Kamala Harris is a fairly strong suburban candidate. It's kind of hard to analyze her, because when she ran in 20, was her seat up in 2018? It was either 2018 or, no, it was 2016, excuse me. When she when she won her seat in 2016, she was running against another Democrat. I actually have a lot of random races pulled up. She was running against Loretta Sanchez, and Loretta Sanchez did win a few of these counties, but it was a Democrat against a Democrat. So Harris did win by fairly large margins, but a lot of these polls are kind of weird to look at. And then we go look at her Attorney General election. I don't have it pulled up, but this was a very long time ago. This was in 2010, when a lot of her past that people bring up was still fresh in voters' minds, which it still is, but it's not going to be as major of a factor as it would have been in 2010. I don't even know if it was 2000 when she was the Attorney General or before that. I don't remember it. Excuse me, sorry about that. But she did not perform amazingly in California. But once again, that was also 10 years ago, and I don't have exit polls. I mean, we could look at different suburban counties, but once again, 10 years ago as well. Also, I mean, like, we look at the evidence that we have. Also, Haley, of course, was also still a fairly long time ago, but, like, this was, like, over 11, like, this was in the, probably, I would assume, the 2010 midterms. I don't think they do attorney general elections differently, in California. Anyways, back to this. What we're seeing is Haley, like, yes, she's establishmentarian, but we've seen serious results in recent elections. That was in a red wave as well. In recent elections, like, that was also a red wave when Harris lost, or when Harris nearly won. But we've seen, that was in a red wave, and we've seen her in more recent years in a more, not the same GOP, but the Tea Party movement and the Trumpist movement were similar things. Trump just kind of became, like, the poster child for it. But, as we look at this, like, she was not a phenomenal suburban candidate. I think she would do alright, but not enough for it to be able, she would probably do a little bit slightly, actually, I think she would do worse than Trump, just because the suburbs would be shifting. I think that they would shift less over the next 4 years if Haley were the nominee than they did in the last 4 years, but, they would still shift, and it would still shift Colorado, that 1.5% to the left. Now, for Haley's safe states, she is not a Democrat, she is a Republican. Utah, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana. Montana is not going to be, not Minnesota. Montana's not going to be likely. I mean, like, realistically, Haley is not going to perform poorly in Montana. Harris just won't, Montana is very white, and Harris just won't be able to do well enough among white voters. I mean, like, it's still a possibility. I just think that Haley would probably do slightly, I mean, like, we can go look at 2012, the last time, that's the Senate, excuse me. Last time a traditional Republican ran, it was barely likely. I just think that Harris is too weak of a candidate to be able to do that among white voters if Obama was barely able to. I just don't see it happening. Next up, now for all of Harris's likely states. New Mexico, I think, would be likely. Minnesota, I think, would be likely. Nebraska's second would be likely. Haley, you get those. Maine at large would be likely. Virginia would be likely. Now, I think that in New Mexico, I mean, like, Haley wouldn't be able to do well enough among minority voters, and I mean, like, we could see it narrow down, but it'll probably still remain likely. Virginia, I think that Harris, I've said this in previous videos. Actually, I feel like I say it in every video where I discuss Kamala Harris in some way. I think she's a very strong candidate for the state of Virginia. I mean, like, looking at this, I'm just going to move that so we can see all those DC suburbs. Looking at this, I mean, like, she is a very strong candidate for black voters. I think at least, black voters in Virginia. She would also be obviously a weak rural candidate. I think that she would be a stronger candidate, a very strong candidate in DC suburbs. I think she's a very strong suburban candidate. I think she could do very well in Fairfax County, in Arlington County, in Alexandria County, and Loudoun. I'm never sure how to pronounce that. Or Loudoun, I guess. Loudoun. I'm sorry. If you live in this county, I'm very sorry. I have no idea how to pronounce it. And a lot of these counties, suburban counties, she would do very well in, I think. I think she would also do very well among a lot of these richer voters. And she would ultimately do very well overall in the state. In the state of Maine, at large, I mean, like, Haley isn't a phenomenal candidate for Maine. I mean, like, she wouldn't be awful. I just don't necessarily think she has the enthusiasm, and the support, really, to be able to do so well in Maine second that it becomes anything closer than likely. And then we go look at Minnesota. I mean, like, both candidates are bad for white working class voters. They're both, when it comes to that, I think that this is a serious, I think that this is, like, a hope that Democrats should have, or not necessarily a hope, but some, I guess, encouragement for them, because Nikki Haley and obviously Kamala Harris is a bad candidate for the white working class, but so is Nikki Haley. And, I mean, like, we go look up over here in the Iron Range, I think that Haley would still lose Lake County. And I think that with a lot of these voters having to choose between two people that they dislike, it'd probably split with the incumbent vice president, who at the moment the Biden administration is doing a fairly strong job of rolling out these COVID vaccines and rebuilding America, as he was saying. So I think they would ultimately split with her. She would probably win it by 6%, maybe. She would also probably do better in Hennepin County, and probably do fairly well in these suburbs. Anoka County, maybe win. Lake County, she would probably win by maybe at best for her 5%. And yeah, and then that is it for Harris's likely states. On to Nikki. Haley, Kansas, Missouri, Indiana, South Carolina, and Alaska. Now for the state of Kansas, I mean, like, it could be safe. We go look at like Topeka and Shawnee County. Biden won it, which is obviously a good thing for Democrats. I mean, like, we go look at it shifted 5.6% to the left. So in Shawnee County, Biden won it, and he would probably or Harris would probably do well there. She would also probably do better or well in all these Kansas City suburbs. I don't think that she would flip Sedgwick County, but I think she would do well there. Probably lose it by 7% at best for her, and then she would probably do well in Riley County as well. She would do really bad in rural Kansas, I think, because I think a lot of these voters would, I guess, vote for the lesser of two evils, because I feel like a lot of these voters wouldn't really like Nikki Haley, but I guess they would probably like her more than Harris. So they could vote against her, but just considering that it was a likely state this year, I think it'll probably be likely. It could still be safe. Don't get me wrong. Kansas still could be a likely state safe state, and it wouldn't be insane, but it could be likely. And because it was in 2020, I'm gonna label it likely because it's kind of close. Next up is Missouri. Now I actually think that this will be likely. I mean, if you go look at 2020, Trump won it by 16.4%. Trumpist candidates are very strong in Missouri. Haley has more or less distanced herself from Trump, but I don't think that she's done it enough to the point where she's going to get enough traditional support. But I think that she's done it enough, like, she's not done it necessarily enough to the point where she's going to get, essentially every Romney voter. But she's also done it to the point where she's not going to do as well among Trumpist voters. And Trumpist voters may just stay home instead of vote for Haley. So, in spite of that, I mean, like, we go look at last time a traditionalist was on the ballot. Or actually, at times that traditionalists were on the ballot. Now, in 2018, this was more or less a blue wave year, but the seat still flipped. Hawley won it by a likely margin, 8 points away from being a safe margin. Actually, no, like 5.8%, I think. So, yeah, like 10% away from being a likely margin, 9.2 or whatever. And then we go look at 2016, Roy Blunt against Jason Candler, who is obviously, like, you can't deny it, he was a phenomenal candidate for this race. So that is one large reason that Blunt lost it or barely won it, but still a likely margin, actually no, a lean margin. And then we go look at 2012, Romney won it by 9%. So we've seen Republicans win it by, like, likely margins, like, well into likely. We saw Blunt win it by a lean margin. So it wasn't like a on-the-line thing. And I think that Haley will probably win it by, like, 14%. But I think it'll probably still be likely. Same in Indiana. We go look at 2016 or 2018, excuse me. Mike Braun. I mean, like, this was a flip. So, yeah, it's probably going to be narrow. But, I mean, like, Joe Donnelly still only lost it by 5.9%, which is a likely margin. I mean, like, he was able to carry Porter and LaPorte County. He even carried Vigo County, so he did very, very well. And we go look at, 2016? And we go look at this. Todd Young won it by about 10%, 9.7%. Once again, Evan Bayh was, yes, a good candidate, but still, it was a likely state. And then we go look at 2012, Obama lost it by about 9%, similar to what he lost in Missouri. So, I think that this will probably be a likely state, just because, like I said, traditionalists tend to, do like that. And then in South Carolina, I mean, like, it's Nikki Haley's home state. She's not going to do horrible. She'll probably win it by, like, 13%. And I just realized I realized a couple seconds ago, I'm, like, almost 15 minutes into the video, and I'm only on likely states. So I will try to hurry this process up. Next up for Harris's lean states. Oh, Haley's gonna win West Virginia safe. Anyways, on to Harris's lean states. New Hampshire. And Nevada's debatable. It could be on the line between tilt and lean, so I'll just give it to her lean. Actually, I'll be generous to Haley. I'll give it to her tilt. So let's go. I guess the only tilt lean state is New Hampshire. So let's go talk about that. We go look at 2020. Biden won New Hampshire by 7.3%. So about 3% outside of a lean state. We go look at the 2012 election. Obama in New Hampshire. He won it by similar margins, about 6%, 5.8%. So I think that Haley would do very well here. I think she would also do very well. I think she'd do well in rural New Hampshire, and I think she'd do very well among a lot of these white voters. I don't think necessarily that she'd win it. I think she would do well also among white educated voters. I think she would just probably narrowly lose it. I say narrowly. I guess narrowly, would it be in the lean column, would be like 4 or 5%. So I think that Haley would narrowly lose it. I guess narrowly for New Hampshire, I guess. Trump narrowly lost it, but voters then rejected him by a lot more than they did in 2016. So, yeah, for Haley's lean states, also Iowa's going to be likely. Excuse me, I never labeled it likely. Like, we go look over here. Trump won it by, 8 point, I think, 9. I'm sorry, my math is 8.2%, excuse me. 8.2%. Why did 8.9? What am I saying? Haley, I think, would do very well in rural Iowa. I don't think that she would be... I think that both her and Harris are bad candidates for a state like Iowa. But I think that given the fact that she is a Republican in the state, would just help her. We have seen a lot of these rural voters vote for Trumpist candidates and then vote back for traditional Republicans. Vote against traditional Republicans, like we saw in 2012. Obama won it, and then Romney won it. But I do think that Nikki Haley would carry it by 5 or 6%. Now, anyways, back to Harris's lean. Actually, no, that was all of Harris's lean states. For Haley's lean states, Ohio, and that is actually it. Sorry, in Texas as well. So we go look at Ohio. Trump won it by, that's West Virginia, there you are, Ohio. Trump won it by 8.1%. We go, once again, last time a traditional Democrat, a traditional Republican was on the ballot. Obama actually won it by 1.9%. Now, I think that Haley would carry it by 3 to 4%, because first off, once again, she's a bad suburban candidate. Harris is a strong suburban candidate, and the suburbs are still very, very red, so they'll continue to shift. But also, she's just not as Trumpist as a Republican would need to be to win Ohio by a likely margin. She doesn't have a lot of that white working class appeal. While I think that Harris also doesn't. That's what kills Harris. If Harris had white working class appeal, like Biden did, Biden would maybe carry Ohio against Nikki Haley. It would not be out of question. It's not an insane idea. However, against Kamala Harris, this is where it really kills her. She just doesn't have the appeal. This is where the next 4 years come in handy for her. If she can do very, very well to change her image, because right now, 14%, I believe, don't have an opinion of her. If she can do well to get those 14% to like her, and she can do well and try to bring back jobs in the Rust Belt, she could do very well. But this is essentially where it kills her, because she doesn't have that white working class appeal that she needs to be able to win a state like Ohio, where Haley also doesn't, and these voters would probably just stay home, and it would narrow down to a lean Republican state, and be back, honestly, I think in this election, it would be a very competitive state. Obama was able to carry it, and this was a long time ago, and it's going to continue to shift, yada yada, but still, I think that Haley would win it by a lean margin against Biden. Biden could carry it by tilt margins. That's not out of the question. If you want me to make a video, Biden versus Haley, I might actually do that. It actually seems like a fun election night to make. I might do that. And then we go look at the state of Texas. It's not gonna vote blue, I don't think. I think that people are too hasty to think that Texas could vote blue. We go look at this. Harris could do very, very well. She could do very, very well among Hispanics. Biden very narrowly won Hispanic and Latino voters. I think that she could do very well among Hispanic and Latino voters, and that Haley would, according to what I've seen her do among black voters, once again, we weren't able to find data among other minority groups, which is unfortunate, because that could help us, but we're just going to have to assume from the one minority group that we could find that she's a bad candidate for minorities, as she was for those voters. It's unfortunate that we don't have all the data, but we're just going to have to make inferences with what we have. So, we look at this. I think that Harris could do very well in the state. She would do horribly in rural Texas, but she could do very well in San Antonio, do very well in El Paso, do very well in Dallas, and do very well in Houston. I mean, like, the suburbs are still very red, and she is a very strong suburban candidate. I think she would probably lose it by 1 to 2, maybe 3%, in a best case scenario for Haley. Just because she would be strong enough among urban voters, and then strong enough among suburban voters, and strong enough among minority voters, because that's essentially what she needs, and she could do it. I don't see it flipping, I highly doubt it, but it is a legitimate possibility, so I'll give it to Haley lean. Also, one area I forgot to mention, Maine second, Haley doesn't have it's similar to Ohio, where Haley doesn't have the Trumpian appeal to white voters, that Trump would have, and she'll win it still, but she'll probably win it by similar margins to, like, actually, probably larger margins than Ohio, more like 4 or 5%. Now, every state remaining will be a tilt state. These states are gonna be what decides it. First up, Nevada, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Harris wins, and Michigan. I'll discuss Michigan because it could be lean. I'll discuss that later. Now, going on to Nevada. First off, I mean, like, I was really debating whether or not to put this in the lean or tilt column. I think that Harris would do bad among among rural voters. However, she would do well in Washoe County. I mean, like, this county is shifting to the left. Biden won it by 3.3% more than Clinton. And in Clark County, actually shifting to the right, which I find interesting. I think that Harris would actually shift it to the left, and that she would do much better than Biden in Clark County, just because I think that she has more minority appeal than Biden. And she would do very well in Las Vegas, probably win Clark County by double digits. And then in Washoe County, she'd probably win it by 5-6%, but she'd do horribly in rural Nevada. I'm on the New York Times website, and they have these different shades. She'd probably not win she'd probably not lose Nye County by that shade. Probably still Mineral County. Probably not Leon County, and probably still Douglas County, and maybe still Story County. So you look at this, I think that Haley would still do well enough in rural Nevada, but I think it would narrowly be tilt blue. And the state of Arizona, I mean, like, this could also be lean blue. I just think that Harris wouldn't do well enough among rural Nevada, or Arizonans, I guess. I think that there are talks about Navajo County being very close. I don't think that will be. I mean, like, if we go look at this, Trump was able to win it by, I think, 8.2%. Look at the shift from 2016, it narrowly shifted by 8.2%. So, I mean, like, it's not like a huge shift. And I just don't think it'll flip. Haley could actually overperform there, but I don't think she would do well enough in Phoenix and its suburbs and in Maricopa County to win. I think that the two, Harris's failure to do well among rural white voters, and then Haley's strong performance in Harris's strong performance in Maricopa County will probably cancel each other out, even though Maricopa County makes up a large percentage of the population. I think that it would probably be like 0.9, 0.8, maybe 1.5, maybe like even 3% we could see. But I would say probably tilt blue. And then in Georgia, Haley, can I get to it? Yeah, okay. Haley, would probably not do well enough among suburban Georgia voters. She would probably do very well in a lot of these, southern Georgia areas that shifted to the right. Only a few, but there are still, enough. And she would do well enough in southern and rural Georgia to be able to, do well enough to keep it tilt. However, Harris would do well enough in Gwinnett County and Cobb County and Douglas County to be able to do well enough in Atlanta suburbs. Probably still lose Fayette County, but by like a 3% margin. maybe flip Burt County. It's too rural, I think. I mean, like, maybe it could be considered an Augusta suburb. Like, parts of it. But I wouldn't necessarily bet on her flipping Burt County. But just looking through all this, I think that it could still be a lean state. We could see it move up to lean just because Harris would do well enough in the suburbs. I wouldn't say it's like 100% likely though. So I'm gonna rank it a tilt state. In the state of Pennsylvania, they're both weak candidates for Pennsylvania. I think that Harris. I mean, Biden won it by 1.2%. Harris doesn't have the type of rural support that Biden did, and she would probably lose, or she probably narrowly win because of that. She would probably carry Erie County. I'll say that. Allegheny County, she'll probably win by fairly large margin. She'll probably do well in Philadelphia, probably better than Biden. Probably do well in these suburbs in Chester County and Bucks County and Montgomery County. Probably win Northampton County by a larger margin. That's Lehigh County, excuse me. But she'd probably do bad enough in rural Pennsylvania for it to slip down to a tilt margin. And then in Michigan, Biden won it by 2.8%. This is why I was really, this and Nevada are probably the two closest to being lean, because it honestly could be lean. Harris, I'm actually going to go rank it lean, or rate it lean. It's most likely going to be lean. I just don't see it shifting enough to the right. Harris is a strong enough candidate in Detroit. Haley's not strong enough with minority voters. And I think she's also a strong enough candidate in a lot of these suburbs to be able to do it. Haley would be better among rural white working class voters, but not by a terrible amount. And that's why it would probably be a low lean. And then for all of Haley's tilt states, I'm going to say Wisconsin, North Carolina, and Florida. Now looking at Wisconsin, in Milwaukee and Madison, Harris would do well enough to be able to do very well. However, she would do really, really bad in western Wisconsin, a lot of these white working class liberals who did vote for Trump. I mean, like, we could see it easily being tilt blue. It would not. I'm actually gonna. It's really close. Some of these states are close. It's really close between being tilt blue and tilt red, just because a lot of these voters, and I believe the 2nd congressional district, voted red because of Donald Trump, and with Nikki Haley being the candidate, they would go back to the Democratic Party. Actually, if we can go look at 2012, Obama did phenomenally among these voters. Over here, he lost Monroe County, but he won most of these western counties. So it's I'm not sure where to put it, because it's going to be close, because they're both not good candidates over here. She'd probably lose Door County, though, I'll say that. And probably she might do better in Brown County, but I mean, like, it's close. I'm not necessarily certain where to put it. Just because Trump isn't on the ballot, I'm going to put it tilt blue. Just because of Trump not being on the ballot. It's going to be very close, probably less than 0.2%. But just because Trump wouldn't be on the ballot, I'm going to say it's tilt blue. It'll be close, very close, but it's going to be tilt blue. And then in North Carolina and Florida, we go look at North Carolina. Trump won it by 1.3%. I think that Haley would probably do decent in rural North Carolina, but I don't think she'd be strong enough in the suburbs and in Charlotte and in Raleigh and Greensboro to be able to do well enough. And it'll probably shift a little bit to the left. And then in the state of Florida, that could be tilt red. It's close between being tilt red and lean red. I'm really not certain where to put it. Oh, I just realized this is actually the 2020 electoral map. Oh, okay, that's funny. Or not the exact electoral map, but the same map, just not the same margins. That's kind of funny. That's, I guess, kind of pointless. But we go look at this, and we go look at Florida. I think that Haley would actually, it really depends on how she does in Miami-Dade, because Harris would win Pinellas County by, 2%. She'd win Seminole County by, probably 2, maybe 3%. And probably win Duval County by 3 or 4%. She'd probably still lose Jefferson County, and same with Monroe County. I wouldn't bet on her winning either. But they'd probably become more competitive. Escambia County, she's not going to win it. But we go look at this. It really does depend on how Nikki Haley does in Miami, because on one hand, her not being Trump could turn away a lot of these minority voters that like Trump, because Trump was actually a strong candidate for minority for Republican. I will say that he was a very strong candidate for minorities, for a Republican. I don't know that Haley would be as strong of a candidate. It really does, though, depend on how Harris, what am I saying, repels attacks of socialism, because she will probably be called a socialist by Haley, in an attempt for her to be able to win the state of Florida. It really does depend, though, and as I've discussed, Harris is more assertive than Biden and would probably defend herself, which is why I think that she would do better in Miami-Dade County, especially if the Biden administration is successful. It would probably be tilt red. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it was very, very long. I know it's over 30 minutes, so I apologize about that. If you enjoyed that, I really hope you leave a like. Stay tuned for my next video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!